Yeah.
All right. Should the breeze topic number 7 is what was your first impression of Korea time before listening? If you're still listening to us in the chat, drop a 1 for me so I can know that real folks are out there. I know we lost Danger for the night, but I hope Danger comes back again. Only if you don't mind, invite her back again in the future. Should the breeze topic number 7 is what was your first impression of Korea time before listening? This came with a link. Let's check it out. And again, Gas, I'm not trying to cut your wisdom or Bakari's or anything. Just time constraint. Let's do a whole shoot the breeze topic on it.
Because they have improved sanitation. Being landlocked, yes, Switzerland and Austria, two of the richest countries in the world, are landlocked. Resource curves, the US, Canada, Australia, they are very well endowed with natural resources. Actually, most African countries do not have a lot of natural resources. They seem like being richly endowed with natural resources only because their economy is underdeveloped and they rely on natural resource exports. But when you actually look at the data on deposits, these countries are not that well endowed except for DRC and South Africa. Switzerland, Belgium, and Taiwan have wrong degrees of ethnic divisions. Switzerland has basically 3 groups. German, French, Italian, and a small group that speaks Romansh. And indeed, in the 18th and 19th century, Switzerland had like 4 civil wars. It was never that peaceful. The original people of Taiwan are Polynesians. A tiny number of them still exist, called Kaoshan people. But the so-called Taiwanese are descendants of people who migrated from Southeast China in the 16th, 17th century, especially from Fujian province. But then superimposed on this group was the so-called mainlanders, the northerners who came with the Nationalist Party government when they were kicked out of mainland China by the communists. So once again, it's not as if rich countries do not have these ethnic divisions. They somehow built a political system, made economic arrangements to make these containable. It's not that they don't have them. In the early days of development, today's rich countries had institutions that are far worse than the African ones today. In terms of culture, before their economic successes, the Germans, the Japanese, and the Koreans, they were all described as lazy, overly emotional, uncooperative, and much worse. So this is a comment by an English traveler in Germany in the early part of 19th century. Basically, he's saying the Germans are stupid. Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein novel, in her travel journal, once wrote that Germans never hurry. They have no sense of time. And then this is a comment that Beatrice Webb, one of the founders of Fabian socialism in this country, made when she went to Korea and met my ancestors. And I think this is one of the rudest things that anyone has ever said about anyone. 12 millions of dirty, degraded, sullen, lazy, and religious savages. Basically, one problem is that when you live in a kind of poor agrarian society, you don't need to keep time, for example. If you live in an industrial society, you have to keep time. If you are working in a production line, everyone has to be there at 8:35 so that the line can start. And in relative terms, time is more valuable. So people's behavior changed. So in addition to this the inevitable prejudice that people from rich countries have towards poor people in poor countries, we have this the fundamental differences in the organization of societies that are due to the differences in economic structure. Even in Korea, until say 20 years ago, we had this expression called Korea time, which means that you can be up late for an appointment up to maybe 1.5 hours. You don't have to apologize. That's what people do. Today, the expression doesn't even exist. Everyone's working to the clock. Everyone's busy, societies are highly organized. I mean, people keep time. So all these the so-called meta-structural factors, when you look at them closely, are very flimsy ones. The argument based on them are usually based on factual mistakes and blindness to history. More importantly, these meta-structure arguments fail to recognize that the rich countries appear not to suffer from those meta-structural factors, not because they don't have them, but because they have developed sufficient technological and organizational capabilities to deal with their harmful effects. Indeed, I would go even further and argue that these meta-structural arguments have become prominent only because the mainstream economists could not explain why the developing countries have done poorly since the 1980s, despite starting to use the good policies that they were recommending and the World Bank and the IMF were forcing on them. These are policies that are based on the best economic theories. So if the policy didn't work, there must be something wrong with the countries, not the policies. History shows that when they were developing countries themselves, almost all today's rich countries use wrong policies, like trade protectionism, regulations of foreign direct investment, state-owned enterprises. Also, these policies have very respectable theories behind them, so it's not a fluke. Another important consideration is that these countries apply those theories in very pragmatic rather than dogmatic ways. So you get to see a lot of the totally unexpected combinations like Singapore or Sweden. Recognizing these basic facts is the starting point of our quest for the answer to the question that I started the lecture with: why are some countries rich and others poor?
All right. I don't know whose mic that is that's on fidgeting around in the background. Please mute that. But Korea time, like I never heard of the term per se. But it's interesting that Korea time sounds like CP time, right? Let's make our responses pretty brief. I have one more topic I want to deal with before 2 a.m. So let's make our responses brief. And again, I just want to say to gas them up and for the Bakari, let's do a whole shoot the breeze segment on that discussion you were having. I didn't mean to cut your wisdom, but just for time's sake, right? Observing immigrants. What was your impression of Korea time before this video?
I don't know what is Korea time. What is it?
Well, these dudes said they could reach to a place up to an hour and a half late, and it's cool.
I think looking at other cultures, that only Europeans are sticklers for being on time, like every other culture that I've come across, from in terms of time. But I didn't get that was what he was talking about, so I don't know what the connection is.
All right, thank you for that. Let's mix it up a little bit. Oni, what say you? What was your impression of Korea time before you saw this video?
Well, I mean, I thought it was interesting because a lot of us, what we hear about is African people time or colored people time, and basically, we use it like as a badge of honor. Say, our culture, means that we don't show up on time. We don't react to whatever. Whereas, my mentality is that realistically, what we're describing a lot of times is agricultural cultures, and agricultural cultures around the world, while not, identical, obviously, they were similar in the sense of, realistically, the people obsessed with clocks, because the guy says it too, are the industrialized people. So, obviously, I did not know that Koreans weren't sticklers for time, and he's saying even 20 years ago.
Right.
But yeah, because what most people think about when they think about particularly the Asian countries of today is that they all are just on point when it comes to, discipline. And so what this guy does, especially since the video kind of jumps in a little later, right? But what this guy does is he kind of shows how there's a lot of meta arguments against why Africa isn't rich, and a lot of times we tend to blame African culture and African corruption and there's too many ethnic groups and so on and so forth. And what he goes down the list is he says, you know what, those conditions that we say impoverish people, are not actually poverty inducing around the world. Like the four ethnic groups, Nigeria has, three major ethnic groups, and that's a problem, as opposed to another country that might have 200 ethnic groups or just two or one ethnic group. And he's like, but what about Switzerland, which has three major ethnic groups and had 4 civil wars, and why are they so rich if not for that reason? And so, he does say, spoiler alert, he does say, how you manage your protectionism is how you would advance your economy, and falling for essentially saying falling for the World Trade Organization's gimmick about free trade is going to destroy your economy, and then they're going to blame it on something else. But as far as what my impression of Korea time was, is that I thought that I thought I was buying into the same propaganda that we tend to repeat, which is, why can't we be like the Asians? Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? And it's like, realistically, yeah, the model minority, exactly. And like realistically, that wasn't a thing. And I think it kind of goes back to I don't know if Trigger Happy is still here, but it goes back to the question that Trigger Happy was pointing out, where he says, well, how do we change this thing? How do we change something in Africa, so on and so forth? And it's like, realistically, human cultures, human experiences are just so malleable that even 20 years, like from 20 years ago, you might have had somebody showing up an hour and a half late and being like, yeah, I came, didn't I? Right. And now it's like they're on the fucking clock. Like they're like, yo, it's 12:32. That's the time of the appointment. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, we can. It tells us that we can transform our economy for better or worse, right? But we can transform, and that's really what we have to really understand when it comes to not just talking about power, but also talking about social change.
All right, let's that was a great response, only, by the way. But let's keep it a little bit brief, because I want to get to one more topic here. Matron, what say you? What did you think Korea time was before listening to this? I didn't even know there was Korea time, to be honest. I assume like only these people were punctual or on top of all that shit. Matron, what say you?
Yeah, I didn't have a construct for Korea time before I heard this. I think that it's interesting that he's messaging to people that, listen, these people came in and drastically changed our way of life with their modernization and industrialization. And yes, that has to happen. But if it wasn't willingly, then they have to analyze that. And I think we all have to look at what he's saying on a larger scale. But no, I had no idea about what Korea time was before that.
I appreciate that, Matron. By the way, if you guys want to look up this whole video, it's Why Are Some Countries Rich and Others Poor? Economics for People with Ha Jun Chang. So you guys can look up the whole video. I intend to watch the whole thing now, because he said something else in there. I can't remember what it is now, but it was really interesting. I want to check it out. Erzuliism. Did you know about Korea time?
I did not know about Korean time, but I think I misunderstood the video. I think I tuned out as soon as he said. He said something about Africa is not rich because he doesn't have that much natural resources. Is that what I heard?
That's what I got to go back and watch. That's what I want to go back to, the lead in to that conversation.
No, I tuned out after that. Like, I didn't even care what you're talking about, because that's not what as soon as he said that, I was like, what? I tuned out. And with the time, I didn't need to know this thing, because I don't know if anybody, I think Tenzin spoke about this Dr. Joy DeGruy.
Yeah.
She's in her book, she went to South Africa, and she said that there was a meeting at 8, but people, when she said because she was trying to be on time, she got there like 6:30 or 7 to be on time. And the meeting, when they got there, the meeting didn't start till 9, and people were still late. And when the people came late, she said they were not They were not chastised. They were not looked down upon. The people just apologized and they continued with the meeting until everything that they wanted to discuss was over. So, and she was talking about maybe that's why black people were don't are not a stickler for time, because it's not in us subconsciously to do that. But I didn't know about Korean time. I thought it was just like, I thought they were punctual. They were getting 1600s and SATs all over the world. So I didn't know that. But as soon as he said the shit about Africa, I tuned out. I don't really care because I think he was lying right there. So
Yeah, I don't know what his list of resources are, because that could limit it to, if you're just talking coal town or something like that, that could limit it to the Congo and South Africa, I think he said. But if you
because
talk about the entire list of the different resources that are taken from Africa, I don't
like that
think
guy's a liar. What is he talking about? And this is the thing. It's like it takes me back. What they have to shit on you in order to take your shit, to dehumanize. That's where he was going. So I tuned them out. Like I'm not watching that shit. Like
Right.
what? Like no one. Like oh my god.
Gas him up. What were your impressions of Korea time before listening?
It's typical of most people who are coming in from the so-called agrarian, or when you're prior to fully embracing modernity, right? You look at the ancient Korean people and how they behaved. It was much different than the so-called modern day Korean. I think you know look, yeah, sure. If Africa is to develop, they have to get better with time, according to this system. But let's, again, these are all fictions, right? There's a great book we can check out, I believe by Lewis Mumford. He wrote it in the 1930s at the time, called Techniques and Civilization, right? You guys should check it out. And in it, he argues that the key to modernity was not the steam engine, but the clock, right? And I always say, and I got this from somebody, that time is an invention. Clocks are man-made. So who's clocking you, right? Nothing naturally comes out and just makes a clock, right? That's something, that cycle is something that someone creates because they're trying to create an order. So when you look at the time system that we're under now, is GMT, Greenwich Meridian Time, right? So whose order are we under, right? You look at our calendars. Um, you have the Gregorian calendar after Pro Gregory. And we have August after August, and July after Julius Caesar, and all these things. So whose time are we under, right? In certain African societies, you had an 8-day week. In some, you had a 4-day week, right? They were still on the same earth, but they had different interpretations of cycles. So is time this one linear thing that all of us have to observe? Right. And so I think, again, if we're going to develop according to the parameters of the West, yeah, sure, we have to be on point with time. But I'll end with this, and I put it in the chat. I said that, this factory time model that we're under in the world is really equivalent to Pavlov, right? Pavlov would give the dog, I think, a treat and click a bell and watch the dog salivate. And then it got so good, so much to the point that you could just click the bell and you would see the dog salivate without a treat being present. And that's what we're under. So, we get up at 4 and rush to this place, get to the meeting and do this and do this and do this. And that's the order that we're under. So, for better or worse, at least if we recognize that we're under an order, we can be able to take a step back and dial back from that techniques and civilization control. So I'll say this last sentence. If we're really going to be revolutionary, it's not only just removing ourselves from, the church or Abrahamic faiths. It's also removing ourselves from Western conceptions of time as well. But that's a whole nother conversation. But go ahead.
No, that's a great point, Gad. That sounds like a pentagram conversation. That's a great conversation. That could also be a problem too. Just FYI. Bakari, Korea time. Did you know about Korea time before watching this video?
I had never heard of it, and I lived in Korea for 365 days. I did a whole year straight. Didn't, but you know what? I never heard nobody say Korea time. But they were never on time at work because they used to work with us. They was our KPs in the kitchen. They were always at least 30 minutes late. And when they came to work there, and when they finally got there, they would always sit down for about an hour before they do anything. But I never heard nobody call it Korea time though. But when they said that, it made me think about that I used to work with them. When they used to come to work when I was in this man's military, they were always late, always late. Never started. Even when they got, like I said, they'll go sit down. They go sit down. But I never heard of I never heard it called Korea time. And when he was talking about being poor, and he said something about Africa. Now I haven't been to Korea since 1994. What's that for? 95, right? Didn't want to go back, right? Even though I enjoyed my time over there, I met a lot of good met a lot of good friends in the military. I'm still cool with, right? But when he talk about something being poor, like if you walk down the street where y'all live and you see somebody getting food out the trash, you're gonna think something wrong with that, right? But I promise you, at least 3 days a week, you will see people that come to the kitchen. That was normal for them. I don't see how they can talk about how somebody else is poor when their people was literally taking food out of the trash can to take home and feed their family. I was a cook, so we would throw. I've seen it so many damn times. So I don't know. So them being the model minority people, and I've heard people say, yeah, we should be more like the Asians, and a lot of times they have not been around. They have not truly been around any Asians, even here. They haven't been around them or held certain conversations with them and deal with them. No, we don't need to be like nobody. We need to be like who we. I'm not saying if you can't learn something from somebody, so let me get that. You can learn from other people if they do something that's good. You can learn it, but trying to act like we should just try to be like them. No, we don't need to do that. But no, I never heard of Korea. I have never heard of Korea time. I yield the mic.
I appreciate that, Bakari. Since we passed the time, this is going to be the last prompt, so we have about 6 minutes left. Let me just remind you guys of all the shows on KWAZ Radio. Make sure to check out the Pro Black Perspective at 11 a.m. Speaking of time, Eastern Standard Time. Check out, I think Consider Cheek is on today as well around 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check out D-Web et al., Lero, and them on the Harsh Rally podcast at 8 p.m. I believe they have a show tomorrow. Check out the Matron on Monday, Tanzan. Tanzan might not be on this week, Tuesday, but if she is, subscribe to her channel. And of course, check out Gas Them Up and all them as well. Bwana Hagaziki. Tanzania's out there still.
You forgot about me, man. You forgot about me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bakari. I'm sorry. And the forecast too. Wow, I'm sorry about that. Check out the forecast and Bakari. They tend to be on around Thursdays, I believe, Thursdays and Fridays. So check them out as well. I didn't mean to omit you, Bakari. And Bakari does the Support Black Business episodes on Sunday as well at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So yeah, make sure to check out Bakari, Forecast, Tanzan, Matron, Oni, and the Harsh Rally podcast. I hope I didn't forget anyone that time. Make sure to check out, guys, the 2 episodes that we premiered back to back with the all black men panel, all black woman panel, discussing the 1973 report about black men with white women. So check that out as well. And make sure to subscribe to KWAZ Radio as well. They just got the community tab. We got to figure out what to do on the community tab for everyone on the network. So we'll try to figure out something that we could do over there for everyone on the network. With that said, Mr. Untouchable, Bwana Hagoziki, what say you to this idea of Korea time?
I'll be very brief because I know the time is short. What I have to say about that is being punctual is not it's not synonymous with being productive. You can just because I reach to work at 10 o'clock. That don't necessarily mean I can stay until 9 or 10. And if I am productive in my work, whatever I need to do for the day, whatever the task is or the goal is, if I fulfill that uh, if I fulfill
This is
that goal,
Buana's. This is Buana's. This is Buana's elevator pitch to his bosses, right?
if I fulfill what I'm supposed to fulfill for the day, then it's no problems. I shouldn't find no problems. But let me also say, and this is gonna be very brief. Let me also say this. Um, I when I and when if a person is in front of me, whether he's from Asia Town or Korea or even a European person, I halfway listen to them. I find that for me, I do the extraction. I extract what information that I need that is necessary for either if I was in school to pass an exam, or what information I need that I could use to advance either my career or my business. And I stop there. All these anecdotal things that it really leading up to I'm inferior because of these reasons, and he puts them on the board. I halfway listen to these guys and I ignore them because some of these guys are degenerates anyway. So I halfway listen to these guys called professors and so on and so forth. So, but I'll stop there just to be brief.
I appreciate that one. I appreciate all you guys who tuned in tonight. Only is there any interesting enemies within tomorrow or today? It's only there. Unmute your mic if you're there. Maybe only left. Gas, you say you guys are on this week? That's Friday.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is it 5:30 or 7:30?
5:30. 5:30.
5:30
Yes,
p.m.
sir.
Eastern Standard Time.
Yes, sir.
You
So
guys,
I want to thank you for having me, and I know you guys got to end the show. Shout out to all of you, and it's always a pleasure.
Don't go
yeah,
yet, guys. I got something I want to say to you.
Bakari, go ahead.
Hey, guys, I want to let you know, man, when I be messing with you, I like to talk noise to you because you come with a little fire. But I mess with you because you come with that fire. And I do like the stuff that you say. I don't want you to think I got no beef or nothing with you. Because I know it sounds like that sometimes. And I do it like that intent, but I don't have no beef with you. I enjoy I enjoy when we go back and forth. I'm just letting you know that. I don't want you to think there's no problem.
No, no, not at all, brother. I appreciate that. Not at all.
See, that's what I like right there. That's the kind of stuff I like right there. Yeah,
Yo, gas
it's
him
all
up.
love.
Just gassed us today, man. With that
Don't
shit, don't like dick women. Shut up,
don't
gas.
don't miscommunication, guys.
Coco, Coco, I got to run, but can you explain to them what I was saying? Because I don't think they understood what I was saying.
Yeah. Gas, thanks again. I'll see you on your stream this week. All right. Yeah. So yeah, no. Gas was just saying he wants them. He doesn't want them who's thick in the brain, meaning that they're dumb. So I just want to clarify. People thought he meant thick in the brain as a good thing. No, he didn't mean that. Matron, what are we to look forward to this coming Monday?
This coming Monday, we're going to continue our reading of The Rebirth of African Civilization by Chancellor Williams. We're on chapter 9, I believe, and we're just going in deep, talking about the things that he observed when he was there and how we can birth out a new African within ourselves based on his recipe.
Chapter
Yes.
9 is the one I've been looking forward to because that's where he talks about the African economy, the economics in Africa.
Quickly, Coco.
Yeah.
Barbados asked me a question. She said that what system should we put in place, or what system would I use in particular? I would respond to that. Just the rebirth of African civilizations. What Matron is reading, it gives you almost like a chapter and verse over the solutions to solve the ills and the problems that Africa faces. So I think that's a very good start, or grounding point for point in what you could do as in correcting the problems that exist not only in Africa but in our countries as well. So I'll stop there though.
Thank
You
you.
know, the thing that I have to say about that is in the forward and in the opening chapter, he says that the shortest different distance to the African mind is through his religion. And what we have to understand is twofold.